Rajdhani Institute of Engineering and Technology. Engineering the future.
Because no facilities are available. So from them you can expect model shift. So for estimating the model shift also you can do modeling. In the different stages you will have to use the tools that we have discussed earlier. The first step modeling. Model shifter you have to model or you can estimate. So you can find out the model shift, and based on that, for the future scenario, what will be the expected number of people using public mode, what will be the number of bus trips required, demand, what is the demand you can estimate, and you can provide the facilities. So also we have conducted a user preference survey. You interview them and ask them what is their liking, what is their choice. And also to bring in some environmental friendly elements into the system, we have asked for what is the choice or what is their opinion regarding the last mile connectivity. What is meant by last mile connectivity? The first and last mile connectivity. What is meant by that? Your trip will be composed of different segments. Like probably you might be having a walk trip first from your home to the bus stop. So that walk trip, that is the first mile you are traveling, the first segment of your trip. That also has to be comfortable for you. Otherwise you won't adapt to public transport. Also from the bus station towards your workplace door, your destination door. That mile also, that is the last mile. That also you should get a comfortable service. Then only you will adopt to public transport. So you will have to design for that also. For that you can bring in some novel elements like solar electric vehicles. It is environmental friendly, right? Solar vehicles. Have you seen any solar vehicle flying in Trivandrum for the public use? No. None of you have seen. Have you visited zoo recently? No. In zoo there is a solar vehicle operating within the campus for the visitors' use to visit different locations inside the zoo. So the significance of the solar vehicle is that how the solar vehicle will be used for yourself. You can just say there are electric cars now, electric cars flying in our roads. Dependency on the non-renewable sources we can omit, right? And how you can charge it? Solar cars. Yeah, you can store the solar energy. You can supply it store it in a power grid, then later use it. Also, a solar vehicle is there for the campus use inside the Technopark. If ever you happen to enter into the Technopark campus, you can see a solar car which is flying inside the campus. And also there are schemes from central government for enhancing the use of such facilities like the solar and electric cars. National Urban Renewal Mission, there is a scheme like that which is promoting the use of such vehicles in campuses. Designed for some last mile connectivity options. That will bring some novelty in your project present in your company, suppose. So the one who is presenting with most attractive features or most novel features or more practical features will be given more appreciation, right? So, career oriented you will have to look into all such novel facilities or the advancements coming in the engineering side. And what we hear is, we hear a lot about climate change these days, right? So, global warming is happening. So, whatever we design for future has to be environmental friendly. Otherwise, it will be a threat to our survival itself. So everybody looks for the environmental friendly or green infrastructures these days. So that aspect also you will have to bring in your projects. So we have we have asked for them whether you'd be liking to, whether you will choose a solar electric vehicle if it is. If a fleet of solar vehicles is operating, in your campus also you can plan. If people are getting down at the bus stop, nearby bus stop, if there is a fleet of 2-3 solar vehicles operating and coming to your building, if there are a lot of buildings are there, if there is a fleet of vehicles operating, you can get into that and reach here. You need not use your bikes also. Then bike use in the campus. So every campuses, mostly it will be of use in workplace campuses, workplaces. Within the campus will be distributed over a whole lot of area where the movement within the campus will be difficult otherwise. So you can provide for some facilities like this. A fleet of solar vehicles operating during the peak hours. Then during the off-peak hours you can take it for charging. Again during the peak hours you can use it. So such designs you can give for campuses and people will be preferring to use it. Also PRT. Have you seen the PRT? You just Google about PRT, Personalized Rapid Transit. It's like small cabs for which could be used for the movements within the campus. PRT. Small cabs, 4 to 5 people can sit and move about within. And such cabs also you can provide within the facilities. And your campus will look also aesthetically also it will be beautiful. No much personalized vehicles and such design system of transport is operating within the campus. So it will be more neat and beautiful. So these are the preferences for their last mile connectivity. So we have taken into consideration this also while we design the facilities. The number of bus trips we have estimated and the number of additional buses required. What is the existing fleet of buses operating we have found out, and the additional buses required we have estimated, and the number of bus bays required found out. So in a bus bay, one bus if is having a operation time of 10 minutes for 10 seconds or 10 minutes, we can design it what will be the boarding and alighting time. After that the buses can move. So another bus can get in. So the number of bus bays you can limit in such a way that the bus can park, then it can wait for the boarding and alighting, then it can go, another bus can get in. So such a time distribution you have to take into consideration while you design for the peak hour. Only the minimum number, the minimum required number you have provided, otherwise you will not have adequate land for allocation to different users. So likewise you can design the number of bus bays. So this was a layout prepared considering all these aspects. You can see the bus bays, then you can see the segregated pedestrian walkways along the boundary, and also you can see the area allocated for this was the area allocated for the private vehicle parking. If there are taxis and autos, taxis and autos are necessities in a bus stand, right now. People who don't have personalized modes, they will have to hire some other taxis or autos for the last mile trip in some cases. For that provision also you have to give, and you have to provide segregated pedestrian facilities. Here the Technopark campus is there, so the people who get down here can walk through this way into the campus. Also, if you are providing a fleet of solar vehicles that can park inside the campus somewhere here and to take people from here. So they don't have to walk much. Their travel time altogether, their travel time and cost will be minimized. So you will have to check for the optimum allocation of the resources so that the demands are met with. And this is the platforms where you can provide the information kiosks, the ticket vendoring system, the toilets, then the commercial space. Also the built up space on the top floors you can use for shops and revenue generation. This is the work garage, and this is the fuel stations, and this is the shape of the land available. We have to design every facility within the available land. We cannot ask for more land, so we have to design the facility so that it will be with a proper design within the land. And also you will have to check for the turning movements, the easy maneuverability of the buses, and that could be done with the softwares also. if you have a proper design, you can use the AutoTrack software for the swept path analysis, by which you can check whether the vehicles of such and such dimensions will get an easy maneuverability there. For the buses, you will have to check that while you make the final design. So you can adopt to different softwares these days for checking the maneuverability and for designing also. This is the NH bypass in front of that. And the bus terminal facilities, the main attributes are its location, accessibility, adequate infrastructure facilities like parking spaces, taxi and auto rickshaw, pedestrian sidewalks, crossings, etc. And the walkways provided should be tabletop. Tabletop crossings has to be provided. Whether it is possible for even the physically disabled people or differentially able people, it could be accessible. So your walkways should be designed in such a way that you might have seen on roads. There is tabletop such facilities with a slope, then a platform, then a slope, so that everybody can mount on that without difficulty. So such crossings and walkways has to be provided in such a way. And also you can provide different gate blocks and warning blocks on your tactile paving, on the pavings, so that even blind persons can identify that. If there is any gate block, he can know about that. Also, if there is a warning block, he can feel it and know about it. Also, there has to be proper information providing systems like the audios for hearing impaired, the visual messages should be there, audio messages should be there for the information. So it should take into consideration the whole section of the society. So coming to conclusion, also we have designed for the last mile connectivity, which I have not included here. That is considering the demand for the last mile connectivity, we have designed a fleet of solar vehicles operating through the peak hour, taking the demand from the different transit points. Another transit point in the vicinity is railway station. That also you have to, a lot of employees are getting down by train, getting down at railway station, they are coming by train, so they will also have to be taken into consideration. So from there also you will have to provide a means for their last mile connectivity. So altogether, a well-equipped bus transport system envisaged and designed here can pave way for promotion of public transport. Bus stand kanda thodanam bus keri povan. So that should be the kind of design that you should provide for. And universal accessibility. It should be accessible to every section of the society. And it should be the public transport should be designed such a way that it should result in the decongestion of the roads in the vicinity. Ottiri traffic, personal modes adunu maaranam finally, and also it should provide way for safer roads and multimodal integration should be there. Every transportation facility provided, you have to take into consideration the other modes of travel available in the vicinity, like train service, if there is airports, that. If there are inland waterways, then that also has to be considered. Accessibility design. So all those aspects also you will have to plan for. And better connectivity to Technopark. That is the last mile connectivity. The buildings will be at different locations and it will take a lot of time for you to travel in the mornings, and also people won't adopt public transport. So last mile connectivity is a very important factor in case of your work trip. And utilization of permissible floor space index for revenue generation, tapping of renewable source of energy. Terminal building you can you can tap the solar energy sufficiently. Adequate space is there. So you can tap the solar energy, store it, supply it into a grid. Whenever you want it, you can take from the grid, recharge your workers, use it. So also if there is additional energy available, you can provide it for some other uses also. So that should be the kind of systems that you design for future. And there should be ITS applications in your every future projects. like passenger information system. Passenger information system could be with the help of intelligent transport system tools. The fare collection system you can modernize. And also every aspect should be modernized so that people will get attracted to it. And the automatic fare collection system, passenger information system, so people will have more attraction towards the facility. So that is how you should plan for a bus station. And there may be some location specific requirements also. എല്ലാ സ്ഥലത്തും ഒരേപോലെ ആയിരിക്കില്ല അവിടുത്തെ ക്യാരക്ടറിസ്റ്റിക്സും ട്രാഫിക്കും അവിടുത്തെ ട്രാവൽ ഡിമാൻഡും പാറ്റേണും ഒക്കെ. അപ്പം റീജിയൻ സ്പെസിഫിക് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ആസ്പെക്ട്സും യു ഹാവ് ടേക്കൺ ഇൻ ടു കൺസിഡറേഷൻ. അതിനാണ് നമ്മൾ ഏറ്റവും ആദ്യം ഒരു എക്സ്ഹോസ്റ്റീവ് സർവേ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. എല്ലാത്തിൻ്റെ ഡാറ്റാബേസ് എടുത്തിട്ട് യു വിൽ ഹാവ് ടു തിങ്ക് ആൻഡ് ഡിസൈഡ് അപ്പോൺ what are the essential requirements and what are the facilities to be provided. So what is the code used for payment design? On which guidelines we will be able to, or which is the code which are guiding us to do the design of payments?
IRC.
IRC number. You may have a copy of that, right? Then where you refer for your charts, design charts. Okay, it is IRC 37, and recent revision has come for it, 37 2012. So you have got all the design charts in that guidelines, in that specification. It's guideline, IRC guidelines. So based on which you can decide what. When you say payment design, which all things you decide? What you decide? Okay? Yeah, thickness of each layer of the payment, right? Then, what are the two types of payments? Flexible and rigid payments. How it differs, both? Flexible means it is flexible. Rigid means it is rigid. Then, what is the kind of load taking behavior in both? Slab action in which? Rigid payments. The other? How the load is transferred? Yeah, grain to grain contact in the granular layers. Right. So which payment you like? Flexible or design? Flexible, because it is flexible, is it? So why you like flexible payments? Okay? It is mostly used, that's why. Which will have more life, flexible or design or rigid payments. Which is costlier? Rigid payments. Then coming to, so you know only about flexible and rigid payments. Only two types of payments, is it? Have you ever thought of a composition of both this? Have you ever heard of that? A third kind of payment, where you can provide a layer of flexible payment over the rigid. So like this you can combine, like combining the desirable features of one with the another. So you can think of that also. That is still existing, but you can also imagine that, how it will be like if you provide a layer of flexible payment over a rigid. It's called composite payments. So this figure you might have seen somewhere in your textbooks and all, where this is the load taking behavior of when a reload is passing over the flexible payments. And a structure composing of superimposed layers of processed materials above the natural subgrade. That is a payment structure. Payment means a structure where there will be the superimposed layers of processed materials, and that will be over some natural subgrade, that is a soil subgrade. And the primary function is to distribute the applied vehicle load to the subgrade. The function of the superimposed layers is to distribute the load to the underlying layers. And also the surface should provide an acceptable riding quality, and it should have adequate skid resistance. It should be smooth also. It should have favorable light reflecting characteristics, and the noise pollution also should be less. And the ultimate aim is that to ensure transmitted stresses due to the wheel loads are sufficiently reduced so that they will not exceed the bearing capacity of the subgrade. Why you provide different layers with different thicknesses? Why you design a pavement? Why you design some adequate thickness for the pavement? It is to ensure that the load is transferred properly, that the stresses due to the loads are reduced to an extent that it doesn't go above the bearing capacity of the soil subgrade. So that is why you provide superimposed layers with sufficient thickness so that the soil subgrade can hold this without failure. That's why you should have adequate design or a proper design for your layers. And the requirements of a pavement is it should have sufficient thickness to distribute the wheel load stresses to a safe value so that it doesn't exceed the bearing capacity of the soil. And it should be structurally strong to withstand all types of stresses imposed on it. It should have adequate coefficient of friction. Why? Why the pavement surface should have adequate coefficient of friction? Yes, otherwise skidding will happen. Skidding will happen. And it should have, at the same time, it should have a smooth surface also, so that it provide the adequate comfort level to the riders. It should not be much rough also. The texture should not be much rough also. If so, if it is rough beyond an extent, then the ride will not be comfortable. So it should have some smoothness also, and it should produce least noise from the moving vehicles. It should be a dust-proof surface, and it should be impervious, and it should have a long design life and low maintenance cost. And the types of pavements include, as you said, flexible pavements, rigid pavements. There is another category called composite pavements, where you can provide a thin layer of flexible pavement over the rigid. And the desirable characteristics, it is having much more desirable characteristics, but the cost will be more, and it involves a complex analysis also. And as you said, the flexible pavements, the load transfer is different from that of rigid. It is having less flexural strength, while the rigid ones are having good flexural strength. The slab action, the loading is taken by bending the slab action. It acts like a rigid plate. And the rigid pavements example is cement concrete pavements. The other one is bituminous pavements. And in the flexible pavement, grain to grain contact between the different layers happens. It has many layers, and the design is based on what concept? In flexible pavement, it is based on layered system. The top layer has to be of what quality? Inferior or superior? Superior quality, because stresses are more on it, and the stress distribution is like this, in a pattern like this. When the load is transferred to more area, the stresses will be lesser. So the topmost layers has to be of superior quality to withstand more stresses, and towards the underlying layers, the material property could be comparatively inferior. And the flexible pavement layers reflect the deformation of the lower layers onto the surface layer. On national highways and all, you might have seen some deformations on the surface. Have you seen? Have you seen some deformations in Kerala? There is no much such deformations on national highways, but in many other highways where a lot of traffic is flying, lot of commercial vehicles, axle loads are flying, you can see deformations along the wheel path. What is a wheel path? Mostly the vehicle wheel will be moving along a particular path, and that is referred as the wheel path. Along the wheel path, since a lot of loads, repetition of loads is coming, deformation may occur in course of time. That is referred as rutting. Rutting is a failure criteria, is a failure, kind of failure on payments. Rutting, the deformation on payments. And the flexible layers reflect the deformation on the lower layers. That is the reflection of the underlying deformation that is reflected on the surface also. And the design is based on overall performance of flexible payment, and the stresses produced should be kept well below the allowable stresses that each layer can have. The stresses of each payment layer, stresses on that should be within the allowable value. Otherwise, the system will fail. So this is the wheel load. This is the stress distribution pattern. The topmost layer is referred as wearing cause. Below that, the base cause, sub-base, subgrade. You might have drawn it many times. So the subgrade support is the foundation for the payment structure. And when a vehicle load, the wheel load is coming, that will be distributed in this manner on the payment structure. These are the typical cross sections, the typical layer thicknesses provided for each layer. And can you give an example for a surface course? A surface course. Bituminous. Bitumen is not a surface layer. Bitumen is just a material. Macadam. Okay. Why macadam? What is meant by macadam? Why the term macadam? Is it a kind of dam? Dam? Why you use the term macadam? Have you ever thought of it? Name of the discoverer of that, right? John Macadam. Yes. So you have some clue on that. Okay. So that's why the term macadam. Somebody might have discovered for the first time that a composition of these materials could be used in road, and that was John Macadam. And after him, the type of layers is referred as macadam. So you have told macadam for what? Surface course, wearing course. What is bituminous macadam? Will come in wearing course or binder course? Binder course. Then wearing course will be what? Any other macadam you know? Water-bound macadam. That comes in which layer? Yeah, base course. Then, so wearing course, what you will put in your wearing course? So you have BM, bituminous macadam for your binder course, and you have water-bound macadam for your base course. Any other kind of mixers or layer types? Concrete. Which concrete? Okay, bituminous concrete. Bituminous concrete you will put in which layer? Surface course. Okay, surface course. So you have any other version of concrete other than bituminous concrete? Asphaltic concrete is same as bituminous concrete. Have you come across SDBC? You have BC for bituminous concrete. You might have designed a thickness BC this much, 40 mm, BC 50 mm. So have you come across SDBC? That is semi-dense bituminous concrete. Bituminous concrete in the aniyanayittu varum. Semi-dense bituminous concrete. That is of comparatively inferior quality. Semi-dense bituminous concrete. So that also could be used in your surface course. So SDBC, BC then. Any other wearing courses? Have you heard of premix? carpet. Have you heard of surface dressing? Yes. Then any other kind of wearing course? Prime coat. Prime coat is not a course. It's a treatment. Prime coat is a treatment. That is the first application of bitumen over the granular layers. Then mixed seal surfacing. A lot of different types of wearing courses are there, and then you can put depending upon the site requirement and your budget constraints and your project requirement, the design loads coming, everything you have to consider and design your layer types. And for binder course, you have bituminous macadam. Bituminous macadam is comparatively inferior type, so a better one is dense bituminous macadam. For roads having more traffic, more axial loads, you have to provide DBM. For highways, national highways, etc., the course has to be more dense bituminous macadam you have to provide. So below 5 MSA only you will provide BM these days. So DBM is provided for binder course. And base course, other than WBM, you have WMM, wet mix macadam. That is also a base course. Then sub-base course. Sub-base course, you have GSP granular sub-base, which is in some cases it will be optional. You may not need to provide it in some cases. And compacted subgrade. Then come the below layer is natural subgrade. And prime coat. Prime coat is the first application of the bitumen over the granular layer. And this is the cross section of a rigid pavement, where above the base course you will provide the Portland cement concrete. That cement concrete also can be PCC, plain cement concrete, or RCC, reinforced cement concrete. Different types of cement concretes you can provide there also. With joint and without joints also you can provide. Pre-stressed concrete also you can provide. So depending upon your requirement, based on the wheel loads and stresses coming over, you have to design whether it is PCC required, whether RCC required. If you are providing RCC, what is the advantage of PCC? You have designed for joints also. Have you designed for rigid pavements? No. You had a subject for design of rigid pavements. No. Yes. You have. Some of you learned and some of you didn't learn. Okay, rigid pavements. Rigid pavements will be mostly with joints in between. Right. Joints. You might have seen somewhere rigid pavements where they are provided, there will be joints in between. If you are providing PCC, your joints will be more frequent. More nearer joints you will have to provide. But if you are providing RCC, your joints can be further apart. Likewise, a lot of differences are there. You have to read upon that so that you will understand it clearly. In which situations you are giving PCC, which situations you are giving RCC, where you are giving pre-stressed concrete. Likewise. Okay. So you have got rigid pavements also, which are costlier than the other. And typical layers of the flexible pavements, seal coat is for what? Seal coat is for sealing the surface course. And this is a thin surface treatment. This is not a structural layer. It is a thin surface treatment to waterproof the surface, and it provides the skid resistance. And what is the purpose of tack coat? It is a tack coat you will provide between two layers. So if you have an existing pavement and you are providing some strengthening of it, then you have to get a bonding between the two, no? Otherwise the two layers will remain as distinct. There will not be a bonding between the two. So in order to achieve that bonding, you have to provide a treatment, that is tack coat. You understood the purpose of tack coat. It is the application of bitumen or emulsion for providing a bonding between the two layers of binder course. And it must be thin and uniformly covering the entire surface. And it should set very fast also. Have you heard of emulsion? Emulsion. What is the difference between bitumen and emulsion? Emulsion is a form of bitumen. Okay, when in reaction with water, it will what? Chemical substances. I will set fast, and this emulsion can be used as it is a suspension aqueous medium, suspension of aqueous in a suspension aqueous medium, and here it could be used as for the application of providing a bonding between the two, that is for providing tack coat. And prime coat is the first application of binding. That is over the base layer, you are putting your bituminous layers. So the first application will be prime coat. And here the bitumen will be applied to an absorbent surface. It will penetrate into the granular layer and provide the bonding. And it plugs the voids and forms the watertight surface. And what is the surface course? What is the purpose of surface course? Surface course is in direct contact with traffic loads. So it has to be of superior quality. And it provides the characteristics such as friction, smoothness, drainage. How the friction you will check? How will you check the friction of your surface? Is there any means? Is there any means to check whether the surface is having adequate frictional resistance? You have got equipments. You have got equipments to check the skid resistance. Portable skid resistance tester is there, with which you can test the surface, whether it is having adequate friction. And the draining, what is meant by the drainage? When the rainwater falls on the surface, it should get drained off. So there should be, the texture of the pavement should be such that it will help in draining the water which is falling over the surface. Between the aggregate grain to grain contact, there will be some pathways for draining of the water if the texture is proper. So that draining should be there so that the water won't accumulate over the surface. It would get drained off from the surface. Otherwise skidding will happen. And prevent the entrance of excessive quantities of surface water into the underlying base. That is also a function of surface course. It will prevent the water entry into the underlying layers. It should be tough to resist the distortion under the traffic and provide a smooth and skid resistant riding surface. It must be waterproof to protect the entire base and subvert from the weakening effect of water. And the binder course has to distribute the load to the base course. The base course has to provide additional load distribution to its underlying layers, and also it contributes to subsurface drainage. So each of the layer has its own functions, and the subbase layer is beneath the base layer. So there is some mistake in that. The subbase layer is beneath the base layer, base course, and it contributes to load distribution and surface drainage. It also contributes to the distribution to the subgrade layer. And the subgrade layer is of natural soil and it is prepared to receive the stresses from the layers above it. And it has to be compacted to the desirable density and optimum moisture content. Have you done CBR? CBR. What is the application of that? Based on that, you are doing the design for your pavement, right? Based on the CBR value of the soil. So, the CBR value, how will you check whether the soil subgrade is having enough density? Whether the density is adequate, how will you check that in field? How will you check whether your subgrade is having the adequate density? Otherwise the system will fail if it is not compacted properly. For the compaction only, they are rolling it. They are rolling with different kinds of rollers. They are rolling over the subgrades, and they will check whether the density is. As an engineer, you will have to check whether they have compacted it to the requirement. So, how will you check? Field density have you done in your labs? Field density test. Which method? Which method? Field density. Sand replacement have you done? Sand replacement method. Or core cutter? No. So these are the methods for checking the density of the payment of the subgrade in your field. By saying sand replacement method, you can check it, or by taking the chords and taking the density, you can check it. And the moisture content also. While doing the CBR, you will be preparing specimens at what density, what moisture content. At different moisture contents, you will prepare the specimen and will find out what ultimately. In the compaction test, ultimately what is you are finding out? Optimum moisture content and maximum dry density. So what is the application of that? That's lab okay. So the optimum moisture content and the maximum dry density you will have to determine for its field application in payments. Your subgrade has to be with optimum moisture content so that its density will be maximum. And while doing the construction, you will have to check whether the minimum requirement is at least 97% of the maximum dry density has to be achieved in the field. There is a tolerance of 3, but minimum 97% what you achieve in the lab has to be achieved there in the field. Then only it will be adequate. So all your laboratory tests have some field applications also. So that you have to understand. And based on CBR, you will be preparing your CBR specimens for the optimum moisture content. Also you can prepare for your field density and field moisture content. That is also possible. So depending upon the requirement, you will be doing the lab test for a particular project. And the IRC guidelines are there for design of payments. That is IRC 37/2012. The guidelines recommend that the following aspects for the better performing payments. So incorporation of design period of more than 15 years should be there. Then recent revision, new revision of IRC 37 guidelines says that for all the superior highways like national highways and state highways, the design life has to be minimum 15 and it can be higher also. For expressways, it should be minimum, expressways and heavy traffic urban roads, it should be minimum 20. So for other category roads, it could be between 10 or 15 or below 10 also, 5 to 10 or 10 to 15. But for highways, it has to be minimum 15. And incorporation of computation of effective CBR for subgrades of payment design. So there is a recent revision of IRC 37 which says in cases where there is much difference between the CBR of the embankment and the subgrade, if there is some difference, there will be some subgrade, national subgrade present at your site, no? Also in some cases you will put on some more soil on that to make an embankment over it. And if the two types of soils are different, they may have different properties. They may have different CBR values. If there is much difference between the CBR of two, you will have to find out effective CBR for your design. That is a new revision. That is given only in the recent guideline, recent revision of IRC 37. If there is much difference between the CBR values of both subgrade and the embankment, you have to find out the effective CBR, for which there is an equation given in the guideline IRC 37, based on which you have to change into CBR value in some case and 17 point some value into CBR in the other case, depending upon the traffic, depending upon the difference in value. So you will have to compute the effective CBR value, and for that you have to design. And the use of rut resistant surface layer of high tensile strength to eliminate rutting and surface cracking. So the failure criteria, what is the failure criteria for your flexible payments? It is mostly the fatigue failure and the rutting failure. That is a failure. So the surface layer has to be rut resistant. Rutting that I have told you, deformations coming on the surface layer, which will be a reflection of the underlying layers. A rutting undavam padilla, that is a failure. So your surface layer has to be designed in such a way that it will be rut resistant. For that, you can decide upon the mix type so that it will not cause for rutting. Also the thickness also you can design adequately. And the use of fatigue resistant bottom bituminous layer to eliminate bottom up cracking. The cracking happening on the flexible pavement is of two types, top down cracking and bottom up cracking. So in order to prevent the bottom up cracking, the fatigue resistant, the bottom bituminous layer has to be fatigue resistant. And a selection of surface layer to prevent the top down cracking. The bituminous layer will be, there will be two layers, right, for the binder course. The bottom layer has to be provided such that it should be resistant to the fatigue, and the top layer has to be such that it will be preventing the top down cracking. For that, for making sure that you have to give adequate thickness and also the right kind of mix types. BC, STBC, and paladu parnallo. So which you have to adopt, that you will decide based on the requirement there. Stresses apply, stresses varumbam ഏത് കൊടുത്താൽ റട്ട് റെസിസ്റ്റന്റ് ആയിരിക്കും, ഏത് കൊടുത്താൽ ക്രാക്കിംഗ് വരാതിരിക്കും എന്നുള്ള ഡിപ്പെൻഡ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് അതിനെ വെച്ചിട്ടാണ് you have to decide the thickness as well as the mix type. And the use of bitumen emulsion or formed bitumen treated reclaimed asphalt pavements and base coats. Consideration of stabilized reclaimed asphalt, the pavements which are already broken, that could be again reused by giving some proper treatment. RIP it is referred as reclaimed asphalt pavements. So the material which is already laid in our pavements, when you go for some strengthening or widening, you will be scarifying the existing layers, it will be getting scrapped. That material you can again use by giving some treatment to that. That could be again used, so that you will not have to depend much on fresh aggregates or fresh material. You can reuse the same with some treatments. That is a new advancement coming in pavement engineering. RAP, that is reclaimed asphalt pavements. And the consideration of stabilized, and the recent revision has got designed for our use of RAP also. And the consideration of stabilized subbase and base with locally available soil and aggregates. Also you can use the locally available materials for your different layers. For inferior layers and all, you need not go for far off places to bring your materials. If some inferior quality is available at your nearby site, you can procure that and provide some treatments to that, and you can design for that. So your cost will be reduced. So for that also there is some provision in the recent revision. So you can use how to design for the locally available materials, what are the requirements, what are the guidelines. That is given in the recent revision. And the design of drainage layer. Wherever the water penetration is a water happens to be a problem for the failure of pavements, there you will have to provide drainage layers. For that also design criteria is given, guidelines is given. Computation of equivalent single axial load. So you have got the vertical plying on our roads will be of different axial configurations. What are the types? Axial configurations, what are the types? Have you ever noticed the type of axials in your vehicles? Have you noticed? Single axial is there with single wheel configuration. Then dual wheel configuration is there for trucks and all. Have you seen? The rear axial may be having dual wheel configuration. Then there will be tandem axials with 4 wheels on one side for bigger trucks, 3-axial trucks and all. That is referred as tandem axials. And there are truck trailers with tridem axials. So the axials and the wheel configurations of vehicles are also important in load transfer. So if the wheel contact area is more, what will be the kind of influence on stresses? Wheel contact area is more means stresses will be more or less. When the area is more, what is stress? Load by area. So when the area is more, stress will be less. So if you have got more luggage or more goods to be carried away, it has to be transported on trucks with more axial configuration, not single one. Tandem axials or tridem axials. That is why trailers are being used for carriage of bigger goods, heavy loads. Because there the load transfer will be easier. Stresses coming on the payments will be lesser. Have you seen the check post? Have you ever happened to pass across a check post? There weighing of goods is carried out. And they check whether the goods is within the limit or not. Why? What is the purpose? What is the purpose? What is the purpose? What is the purpose of checking the load on trucks? No, I am also feeling sleepy. No issues. You can sleep, but at the same time, let me enlighten you regarding the check on the loads carried by trucks. Why the load of workers are checked at check post? Have you ever thought of that? എപ്പോഴും പേപ്പറിലൊക്കെ കാണാറില്ലേ വാഴ ചെക്ക് പോസ്റ്റിൽ എത്ര വണ്ടികൾ പിടിച്ചു, പീനലൈസ് ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല, അല്ലാതെ കടത്തി വിടുന്നു എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞിട്ട്. Why? For what purpose that is done? Ultimately, the fact is that if loads exceeding the allowable limits are carried, means it will be very much damaging for your payments. That is to account that what you are taking in your design. To account for the damaging effect of wheel loads, you are considering a factor in your payment design. Which factor? Yourself. Which factor? VDF. Do you remember? Anybody? VDF. Vehicle damage factor you are considering, no? What will be the damaging effect brought about by the load carried by the vehicle onto the payment? To take care of that, to take into account that, you are considering a factor VDF. And if the workers are carrying loads above the legal axial load, there is some legal axial load which is permitted to be carried by the workers. 10 tons in case of the standard trucks. If that is exceeded, means they will penalize. They will penalize, and also that at a check post they will have to move their exceeding loads, goods, and they can only carry the loads within the limits. They cannot carry heavier loads. If it is trailers, for that there is more allowable loads, because there the stress transfer will be more easier because of the more contact area. So that is why this system is there, more axials or more different configurations for vehicles. These are all for the stress distribution, for making the stress distribution easier, for reducing the damaging effect on the roads. Everything has got a scientific reasoning or a purpose. So that is how the wheel configurations of the vehicles are also important in payment design. And the design of perpetual payments with deep strength bituminous layer. Perpetual payments means payments with design life more than 50 years. If the vehicles or the goods carried away by your roads are much, then you can design for perpetual payments where the design life you will provide is more than 50 years. Those are referred to as perpetual payments. For that also there is guidances in the recent revision of IRC. These are the different layers of the payment. The topmost layer has to be rut resistant, the underlying binder layer has to be fatigue resistant, and the layer beneath is granular layer, then the subgrade. And the two failure criteria or the design criteria in flexible payments are rutting criteria and fatigue criteria. And the critical locations in the payment structure are the joint between the bundle course and base course where tensile strains are coming up, and the compressive strains coming at the joint between the subgrade layer and the base layer. So these are the critical areas of failure. So from there the cracking occurs, the bottom up cracking and the top down cracking. Also the rutting. Those are the failure criteria which is being taken into consideration while designing the charts, and based on the charts you are designing your payments. And the design procedure is based on performance of existing designs and using an analytical approach where simple design charts and catalog of payment designs are added in the code. You have got some readily made, some ready available charts now based on which you are designing. And the charts are being prepared based on some analytical approach, taking into consideration the behavior of different types of mixers. Many researches are being conducted under the guidance of Moore, and based on the performance of such payments, they have adopted an analytical approach and finally arrived at those design charts, and based on which you are designing your payments. And the appropriate designs could be chosen for the given traffic and the soil strength. So the two important factors that you will have to take into consideration is the traffic, that is the rolling loads coming over it, and the CBR value of the subgrade. And the payment thickness is of different layers of payments is given as per the design charts. For the traffic and taking into consideration the strength of the subgrade soil, you will have to decide upon the thickness. For the traffic, how will you find out the design traffic? This equation you have already learned, right? 365 A into 1 plus R the all raised to n minus 1 by R into F, where L is the cumulative number of standard axes. Why you need to take the cumulative number of standard axes? Because different vehicle will be having different axle configuration. So all those varieties you will have to bring it into an equivalent tape. That is the equivalent single wheel load. That is, you are finding out how many repetitions of equivalent single axle load is happening on that road. What is the standard axle load considered here? 8 tons, 8.2 tons. That is a standard axle load. So different vehicles will be having different axle loads, but you are converting the axle load of each vehicle into how many number of standard axles is carried by that vehicle. So everything you will have to bring into a common term now, because different vehicles are having different axle loads. So you are converting the axle loads of each of the vehicles into the number of equivalent standard axle loads, ESA. Equivalent single wheel load, ESW. So that factor you are finding out here. Also you are taking into consideration the lane distribution factor and the vehicle damage factor. The total traffic plying on the road will be distributed over 2 lanes if it is a 2-lane road. If it is a 4-lane road, the total traffic will be distributed over the 4 lanes. So you will, the code is giving the lane distribution factor also, so that how much traffic will be carried by a particular lane. If you are designing your payment for the whole traffic, it will be an over design, is it not? And your cost will increase. Your design should be what? It should be optimum. It should not be an under design, it should not be an over design. So you will have to give the lane distribution factor, so that you will have to distribute the entire traffic into different lanes, and have to design for that. Otherwise it will be an over design. You think about it. Or if you are designing for the entire traffic, it will be a super design, it will not be required. You will need to design for only that much load which is passing above that layer. So you are giving the lane distribution factor. And why you are giving the work-free damage factor? To consider the effect of repetition of loads. You are considering the VDF. And also the seasonal durations also you take into account. And N is the design life in years. You have to design the roads for a particular design life, 15 years or 20 years. So that is also considered as N in the equation. And the growth rate of workers is given, which is now taken as 5% annual growth rate for commercial workers. What is meant by a commercial worker? Every time when you refer to design, you refer as commercial workers. How is it different from your worker? Commercial worker. Worker used for commercial purpose. Is it? No, a commercial worker is the one having gross worker weight greater than, there is a laden weight greater than 3 tons. 3 tons weight ulladineyaanu commercial worker ennu parayunnathu, and that is only taken for the design. Cheriya workers, two-wheeler count you will not take for your design. Is it? You take? No. Only commercial workers are considered for design purpose because that is having much load transfer. No. The other workers, if they pass on, they will have much comparatively much lesser weight that will easily taken by the layer. So only you will consider the number of commercial workers for your design. Commercial workers are the ones having a laden weight more than 3 tons. And the growth rate, every year the number of workers flying on the road will be increasing. So if you have a past trend of data, if you have a trend of data for the past growth in worker, you can determine that what is the rate of growth. If it is not available, by default you can take the growth rate of commercial vehicles at 5%. So that is how you calculate the Kuwaiti number of standard access or the design traffic. And this is an example for the design based on the new IRC guidelines. This is the data, 4-lane divided carriageway, initial traffic is given and the traffic growth rate is given, design life given, vehicle damage factor. Vehicle damage factor, how do you find out? Actually, axial load surveys has to be conducted to find out vehicle damage factor. Axial load surveys has to be conducted to find out what is the axial load survey. You have to stop the vehicle, wait and find out the axial load. Then the next vehicle you have to wait. Likewise, surveys are conducted and the damage factor is found out for works which need much precision. Otherwise, if it is a work which need only lesser precision, then you can go for default values. Otherwise, for national highways and all, axial load surveys are conducted and the exact value of vehicle damage factor for that particular highway is found out by conducting the survey, and that is used for design. Otherwise, for inferior type roads at all, we take default values for design. That is given in your IRC guidelines for different terrain types, for different classes of traffic. What are the VDF values? That value you can refer and take for your design purpose. Otherwise, for exact values, you have to conduct axial load surveys. And these are the design calculations done. The different layer thicknesses are designed for the initial traffic is 2,500 commercial vehicles per day. You know, I have told you, commercial vehicles are only taken for design. Now 2,500 commercial vehicles per day, and that has been converted into MSA, cumulative number of standard access. You have the CBR value of your subgrade, then the effective CBR you find out based on the equation in IRC guidelines. Then the effective CBR here is found out, and also you can find out the resilient modulus of your compacted subgrade and also for the granular layer. Equations are available for finding out the resilient modulus of the different layers. And the thickness for the granular layers are designed for WMM to 50 mm. These are designed based on the charts available in the IRC guidelines. You have I think you can download it also from the website. IRC 3rd 2012 is the recent revision based on which that has the entire guidelines for the design of payments that you can read if you have interest and find out how and why the design is having this procedure. And it also has the design charts from which you can design the layer thicknesses. So the thickness of proposed bituminous layer with also depending upon the site specific requirements, you can decide on the type of bitumen to be used. Bitumen available in different grades like VG30, 40, VG67, VG40, VG10, VG30, likewise. What is meant by VG? Have you done viscosity test? Yes. So viscosity grading is VG. So you are grading your bitumen. Nowadays, earlier days, the bitumen was graded based on its penetration values. Now, based on viscosity. That is, viscosity grading is done recently for the bitumen, and that is referred as VG. And the bitumen type varies depending upon what? Depending upon the climate of the region. Depending upon the climate of the region, you will have to adopt the right kind of bitumen, whether it is VG30 or whether VG10, likewise. Okay, so that could be used in your layers, and the thickness could be designed based on the design charts. So that is all. That is how the payment design is done. So for more details, you can refer the IRC guidelines where everything is detailed. This is the beam which you have to place over the rod, and you can find out the strength of the existing rod, and you can decide upon whether it requires any overlay. That is how you do strengthening on your existing highways. Without distracting the existing pavement, you can design the overlay for it. For that, first you use this equipment and find out what is the strength of this existing layer, and you can check. There are also guidelines for this. IRC 81 is the guideline for this, based on which you can do the overlay design. And the functional evaluation of payments could be done using different equipments. That is, bump integrator is an equipment. Skid resistance, portable skid resistance tester is an equipment. And condition survey you can do. What are the distresses that you usually see on your payment surface? എന്തൊക്കെ ഫെയിലിയേഴ്സ് കാണാറ് പേയ്മെന്റ് സർഫേസിൽ? ക്രാക്സ് കാണാറുണ്ട്, പിന്നെ പോർട്ട് ഹോൾസ് കാണാറുണ്ട്, കുഴികൾ, പിന്നെ ഡിപ്രഷൻ, ഡിഫോർമേഷൻ, then the stripping കാണാറുണ്ട്, stripping aggregates and bitumen gets stripped off. What also? Okay. So a lot of such rutting is a defect, depression, showing, then fretting, a lot of raveling, lot of distresses are there. And this is a beam used for that. This is how the survey is done and the measurements are taken over the rod. This is the core cutter. Now after laying a rod, in some cases you will have to check whether the contractor has laid the adequate amount of bitumen. For that you can extract a core from the bitumen using the core cutter, and you can, in the lab you can bring it and test on the strength of the core. For that equipment is a Marshall stability testing machine, with which you can test the strength, and also the bitumen content you can check using centrifuge extractor, from which you can extract the bitumen and find out whether the quantity is sufficient. So all such checking equipments are there. These are the centrifuge extractor, Marshall stability tester. Then the smoothness, whether the surface is having a rideable surface, that you can find out using with the help of a bump integrator. Bump integrator could be used for finding the riding comfort of the surface, the unevenness. So this is how the bump integrator, this is referred as the fifth wheel bump integrator. which you can move along the wheel path and find out what is the cumulative number of undulations on the pavement surface. The undulations will be recorded in the display board. The survey members are sitting inside the vehicle. This fifth wheel bump integrator is attached to the rear end of the vehicle, and the undulations to this fifth wheel will be recorded by means of there is a sensor mechanism here that will sense the undulations, and that will be cumulatively recorded in the display panel in centimeters. So you will be able to find out what is the undulations on the surface, and you can check it with the gate lines whether the rideable surface, whether it is having good surface. The IRC special publication is giving the values for rating whether the surface is average, good or poor. So for different types of layer types, you have got different rating values. So if the value is, if your unevenness value is within the range 3000 to 4000, and if it is a premix carpet layer, then you can rate it as an average surface. And if it is a bituminous concrete and if your unevenness value is less than 2000, you can rate it as a good surface. So as practicing engineers, you may be asked to check whether the surface you are having is having which rating or whether it is adequate. So you will have to conduct this testing on the road surface and have to rate it based on the gate lines. And you can decide upon whether any surface treatments are required to improve upon the rideability. And this is Merlin. Merlin is an equipment which is also used for, this is also used for checking the unevenness or the rideability of the surface. This is a machine, this Merlin is the short form of machine for evaluating road roughness using low cost instrument. This is a more precision equipment which is used for calibrating the fifth wheel bump integrator. Fifth wheel bump integrator you can run along with the vehicle at a speed of 30 km, but this is more precision equipment which is having a configuration like this, and with this you can calibrate the fifth wheel bump integrator. And this is a chart where you can mark the undulation representations will be marked on this, and you will have to do some computations on the plotting you get on this graph paper, and you can find out what is the unevenness value for that particular surface. And skid resistance test, I have told you, you can check whether the surface is having adequate skid resistance. So for that you can use the portable, this is the portable skid resistance tester. So you can check whether the surface is having, this is the pendulum type one, where the pendulum you will be allowed to move tangentially along the surface, and the resistance offered by the surface will be recorded, and you can check whether the value you got is coming within the permissible limits. For a heavily traffic road, it should be, the skid resistance number should be having a minimum value of 55. It is 55 or above is okay, otherwise you have to improve upon your surface. So likewise, different equipments are available for the functional evaluation of the pavement. So this is how the skid resistance testing is done. And this is the sand patch test. That is also, I have told you, the surface should have drainage, proper draining property should be there. That you can check using this test, sand patch test, whether you are taking a measurement of the texture depth of the surface. The texture of the surface you are checking, and the sand of sufficient grading you have to collect, and then that would be poured in a measured cylinder over the surface and spread, and you have to measure the diameters of the circles formed, and the volume pipe, the area will give the depth, and that value you will have to check. This is the grading of the sand used for this testing. The texture depth in mm you will get based on this formula. So if the depth is okay, it should have some coarse to medium texture so that the water will get easily drained off. So this is the kind of testing used for checking the macro texture of the pavement surface, and the micro texture is being checked by the skid resistance tester. This is the macro tester. All this you will study if you get into some post-graduation course or transportation engineering. All this you will study. So this is the Accelo survey. I have told you, for getting the VDF values, exact VDF values, you will have to conduct this survey. On national highways and all, you will have to conduct the axle load surveys and find out what is the damaging effect on the road, and that value you have to use for your design purpose. Otherwise, for inferior roads, you are actually using the default values, the tentative values given in the IRC guidelines. For different terrains, values are given. So for high precision works, you will have to conduct a survey and find out the VDF values. So this is how that survey is conducted. The workers will be asked to stop, and they will be weighed and the values will be taken, and that will be converted into what the damaging effect value. This is the survey data. Different data you can get from the Accelo survey, and that could be used for different researches based on that. This Accelo data include a lot of other values also, like the lateral boundary of the axle load, etc. And also overloading, if there is any overloading, that you can find out from the survey. And the tire pressure data you will get. So a lot of findings could be obtained by researching on the data obtained from Accelo surveys. So thank you. These are the various evaluation surveys. I just wanted to make you familiar with the kind of equipments being used for the evaluation of pavement surface. This is a new area for you, and you will be studying all those in detail if you ever happen to study transportation engineering in detail. And I just wanted to inspire you to get into the profession of being a transportation engineer, either as a pavement engineer or as a transport planner, or any area related with transportation, because transportation infrastructure is always a promising area in civil engineering, where you will get promising career also in future, because every development is ultimately based on the development of transportation infrastructure, and it's the backbone of the industry, backbone of the development of any nation. So thank you all. Sir is actually my guru. He has been guiding me all through the course in level. And also to ma'am for inviting me to come over here and having given an opportunity to talk to you.
I think my dear students have been benefited. You have been benefited by attending the Shalini's talk. The main intention of this type of talk is, beside the syllabus, you should know engineering. Our syllabus will not cover each and every part of the subject. In the other area, you can work it for your thesis work or your project work. That is the intention of this type of invited talk. When Sally invited you for any queries, you did not revert, you did not raise any question. There are two meanings: only you have understood everything, or nothing is understood. I hope, first point, you have understood everything. I hope so. Am I right? Yes. It's a lady, she's having a teaching prior also. That's another problem. Plus point I have seen. She's a good if she's selected in any engineering college, that is an asset in that college also. My dear students, Stanley has also offered first study, she will help you for your research project work or seminar or so. You two teams can contact Stanley to HR. This is that, isn't it? Stanley? Yes, this is an offer she is putting forward to our college. Whenever you have a doubt, get cleared by you head from Stanley. Once again, thank you very much, Stanley.
Respected Principal, Dr. Savikumar sir, Head of the Department, Joyce ma'am, and our Chief Guest of the day, Shalini ma'am, Scientist at NATPA, and our dear staffs, teachers, and my dear friends. Good afternoon, everybody. We had come across an informative session on different topics by Shalini ma'am on transportation, demand modeling, payment design, and also we have come across the proposal and the things adopted for the a new bus station at the Trivandrum, near the Trivandrum Technopark at Calcutta. Usually we used to mug up some topics in our syllabus, and we are just using it for our exams. We are not ready, or we are not trying to think about that topic on a practical way. But it is high time to be aware of the role of a civil engineer, of a role of us to be a civil engineer or a transportation engineer or like a good planner in our society. And Madam inspired us to be a good planner, a good transportation engineer, to be like that in a near future. And thank you, ma'am, for that. I assure you, ma'am, we'll do our level best to reach our goal. And I use this opportunity to thank Shalini ma'am wholeheartedly on behalf of our department. And I request Dr. Satikumar sir, as a token of our gratitude, to hand over a memento. HOD and staffs for giving us this opportunity, and I thank my dear friends for making this session an interactive one, and thank you all and have a nice day.